Calling all nerds. This is More Than Dice, the podcast where we dive deep into the realms of everything nerdy. Whether you're a nerd culture connoisseur, a tabletop titan, a miniature gaming marveler, or just someone who proudly embraces their inner geek, this is the podcast for you. And now here's your hosts, Gonzo, Nerd, and Mizzy.
And welcome to another episode of More Than Dice. I'm Gonzo.
I'm Mizzy.
And I am CF3.
Guys, welcome to another episode. We're on episode 317.
17?
Hey!
Yeah.
317. Today we have got Charles Foster III in the channel. He is a Steamforged Game employee. I've known Charles for about 1,700 years. Back in our vampire days when we, used to do things in the Roman Empire and such. So, we...
I don't know who these strangers are. They have me duct taped to a chair. Call for help, please.
Today's episode, we're going to be talking about who he is, what he's doing for Steamforged Games, and just all around about painting things, because that's kind of how I met Charles and how we started doing things and what we talk about a lot besides basic nerd shit. But before that, let's go and get to the channel and get to the business. We want to thank Turbo Dorks for sponsoring the channel and providing us with awesome turbo shifting paints and metallic paints. Make sure you check them out. They are a really awesome crew. We want to thank Creature Caster for providing us with cool models for us to 3D print. If you like their stuff, make sure you go check out their tribe. The tribe, you get about 12 to 15 models a month and a 5th edition module to go with it. Also, they make Judgment, which is even cooler if you want to play a small little skirmish, 7-model game. We also want to thank Cuttlefish Color for surprisingly give us a crap ton of paints with their sketch and glazing system. Make sure to check them out. You can find that also on the Creature Caster's website. I think I got everybody.
That sounds right, yeah.
Yes! Woohoo! I'm getting
Nailed
used to it
it.
after like 8 years. I think I finally got it.
I could not imagine.
So this is Charles' first time. You're not the first employee of a game company we've had on. We've actually had some of your other coworkers on. It's just you and I have been together for a while and a bunch of stuff, and we've actually worked a little closer together on certain things behind the scenes with you now at Steamforged. And so it'll be interesting. We do have a tradition here. We have to go through. What are you drinking tonight, Charles?
I have this lovely large canister of water. It is made from hydrogen and oxygen. And then I've also got Red Bull sugar-free. And I'm also drinking, apparently, Tabasco Chipotle smoked pepper.
Okay, that goes good well together. If you especially put them all together, it should be good.
We've also got Hot Ones classic buffalo sauce and a bottle of Cholula.
I bet you if you mix that with your paint, you won't lick it very often, will you?
That's what they're there for.
Or you could make it gourmet.
I just wanted to like Goblin Green has like that really nice smooth crisp taste, but like Nuln Oil, you just kind of want to like elevate it up a little bit, so you need that little bit of spice.
Mizzy, what are you drinking tonight?
I have fancy sparkling water, so lemon lime. From
I am doing the same thing as my friend Charles, drinking water. The good old hydrating things that we're going to be going through. I'll be drinking quite a bit of water. It's my staple now. But do we have any shout-outs this week, Captain Mizzy?
One that I am aware of, Liam Payne from One Direction.
Yeah, so they're still searching it, but he fell out of his hotel room or something. They're not saying too much, but
the most I know is that he had an accident, fell out of his hotel room, and unfortunately, things happened, and he's not doing much now.
Yeah,
so
I know there's a little bit of controversy over it because I guess TMZ showed his body and such, and I'm like, that's in poor taste, even for you, TMZ.
Yeah.
That's really poor taste for you. and so they were getting caught on that. Like, don't be a dick. Respect that. Ooh. Other than that, I don't think of
I am
anybody else.
I'm officially at that age where if I see somebody around my age pass away, I'm like, oh shit, what happened?
Yeah. So, I think that's about it. But guys, as usual, as always, if you see something, say something. If you hear something, say something. If you can do something, do something. If you can't, find somebody that will, because we've got to look after each other, especially in these times. Make sure that you go out there and vote. If you're not registered, hopefully you already are, because a lot of places are already stopped on that, or we're hitting that deadline. But please get out there and vote. A lot of stuff is riding on this next election. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hold on one more time. I gotta get it. Just hit just right. You probably can't hear it when it goes through the straw. It aerates up and puts that little bit of oxygen in it, and just gives it that quality taste out of the refrigerator.
Just keep waiting for that classic Adam Sandler. That's some high quality H2O.
I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to our paint table and get everything ready. I have to actually start up the.
Gotta fire up those gerbils in the hamster wheel. We're gonna get this
Yep.
place turned on and powered up.
Get that channel up and get it going. That way we can get, because I still have a lot to paint. Charles says he doesn't have anything to paint, so that's okay. So we're gonna go ahead and get mine started up, and I'll rotate the camera around and such, and we'll get started. And we'll get started with our first question, because this gentleman is very, very, very busy doing nothing but doing top secret stuff for Steamforged Game. Who are you, Charles?
I am Charles Foster III. I am currently the marketing associate for the Iron Kingdoms IP at Steamforged Games, formerly of Privateer Press, Valve, and Nintendo. So I've done my circuit in the gaming. On the hobby side, I am a paintbrush liquor extraordinary and plenipotentiary.
So just like me, you like paintbrushes.
I do. I try and stay away from the Howard Hughes. I know they've got a little bit of that, true metallic metal stuff where that heavy metal poisoning. So try not to look too much at Howard Hughes out there, or fire it through an airbrush and chemical myself out. But I do lick some brushes here and there.
Okay.
Heathens.
How did you get started in the gaming industry? Because I know it's all rainbows and unicorns in the gaming industry, and you make tons of money, right?
No, gaming industry is pretty hard to get into. Usually, talking to a lot of people, it's just kind of bumping into somebody who has an opening and kind of word of mouthing your way in. Occasionally, if you have a really good resume with some good experience, then it's easy to try and find that professional avenue. But I started working for Privateer Press back in 2013. Is how I got my first gaming gig. I was working at Wells Fargo as a kind of a loan officer, analyst person that did behind the scenes things at the corporate office. And I ran into Ed Burrell at Warfare Weekend when it was originally War Machine Weekend back in the day. And Ed was sitting at a table having a few whiskeys, and we were just chatting about what we did. And I just told him I keep track of a lot of important numbers, break down systems, and redo things. Basically, it's like a glorified project manager. And he's like, that sounds like you could probably be a fit for something we need. And then 2 weeks later, I had an interview. And then 3 weeks after that, I was driving from Springfield, Illinois, out to Seattle, Washington to work in games, making toy soldiers, basically.
And so you worked there your whole life and was able to make tons of money and
No,
uber rich.
I worked for Privateer for about 3 years. I went from 2013 through 2016. I had a buddy who was over at Valve Software who really thought my skills would be something good for Valve. So I was like, I wanted to kind of try the video games. I actually didn't believe him that it was the Valve Software. I just kind of thought it was like another tech company named Valve in Seattle. And then I walked through the front doors, and while I was waiting for my interview, Gabe came through, and I was like, oh, this is the Valve. So that was kind of a unique experience. And then I stayed there for a little over 2.5 years before moving on to try Nintendo. Did Nintendo for a couple years, and then actually I was like, I want to take a break from games. I went to biotech and worked on ANA inhibitors for cancer therapies through Seattle Genetics, and then got a call from Wilson in 2019. He was like, "Hey, we're gonna do Mark IV, and we need somebody with your skill set. Would you be interested in coming and making games again? We know that you're kind of on the high end of a tech salary right now, but if you would be interested in doing something fun, let us know. We'll try and figure something out." And I was actually looking to go back to doing something in games. I missed working on the cool side of things where, like, when you wake up, yeah, you might put in some extra hours and your pay isn't high, but you're like, you get up and you're like, I get to work in the creative side. I get to play with creative ideas all day. I get to see, toy soldiers. I get to paint them. They're like, hey, do you want to take pictures and tell people how you paint stuff? I'm like, oh yeah, okay, sure. And so, back to games I went.
Yeah, I don't remember when you and I actually met at what point, and such. But I've been always, worked with Privateer Press a lot, doing, testing and, convention stuff. And I was a press ganger, so, it was. I don't remember exactly when.
I think the first time we actually met was, I think, either between 2015 and 2016 as when you were a press ganger, and I'd been working for the company. But the weird part is, I was actually trying to think about this the other day, and I'm like, Gonzo's just kind of always been in the background of everything I've ever been to. So, like, Warfare Weekend, I'd see you at Adepticon. Did you ever go to Daikon by chance?
Oh, yeah.
Way back. So
Oh,
I mean, yeah, the different small Midwest conventions that always popped up. So it's just like,
Yeah, because I helped at Daikon a few times.
There are times when I miss the War Machine events from Daikon. I was thinking about some of the guys I haven't seen in the local area, because like everything got a big shakeup. COVID pushed a lot of people away from like physical interactive games.
Yep.
So like, and then obviously it's been 20 years. A lot of us have got families now. People are trying to spend more time with kids. So it's just like, when you have to make a sacrifice, the thing that takes like 400 hours to paint a miniature and put it on the table and roll dice seems like a little bit on the small important side compared to the others. So
yeah, I went to Daikon quite a bit, because that's where I originally met Kim, and that's where we met each other, and we hung out, and then we started doing that together also, and helping out there, that and War Machine Weekend and all that stuff. So it was all that Midwest area, because I remember when that was like one of the top places to go play War Machine was Daikon.
It was bragging rights. Way back in the day, for those who haven't been or hadn't been to one of the Daikons, they were run, typically most of the events were run by a lot of press gangers and a lot of great staff that knew each other. But we also had the famous AK and his chemistry paint clock that was illegible. Back in the day, you weren't allowed to see how much time was left in a round. They would just have a random increment of, like, you would have 60 minutes plus or minus 10 minutes of whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And it was this chemistry clock, and it was so confusing to read that if you asked how much time's left in the round, I want to go see if I can get like lunch or something, AK would happily show you the clock because you couldn't read it. There's just you were more likely to solve like string theory than figure out what number was left on what time in what zone on that clock.
Oh, yeah.
That's a very AK move to do.
Yeah, and then of course the legendary dice down screams that are still ringing in my ear to this day, 10 years later.
Dice down! I remember that. Oh, those were the days. Those are old.
Until you've seen AK scream dice down and people playing Magic the Gathering throw cards into the air, you haven't had a true dice down experience.
I remember the dice down time, because that was before everything. When we're like, do I get to finish this roll, or do I just literally put my dice down?
Right.
Yes.
There was a lot of questions, and then especially like the hardcore stuff, the people yelling kill as you try and race to be the first to finish off your opponent's Warcaster.
Oh yeah, because there was the assassination trophy. If you were the fastest to kill your opponent, you got a special trophy for assassinating the fastest.
Yeah, I was trying to think. There's 4 awards in hardcore back in the day. There was one for Caster Kill, which was the assassination trophy. There was one for most army points destroyed.
Yep.
And then there was I feel like there was one for like best painted. But maybe I can't remember. I know there were 4 big awards because there were 4 medals that you could win. And those were always coveted. I always wanted to get one, and I never did. Never did. I had buddies that would get them, but I never was successful in the endeavor. I try and run goofy lists, and I get punished severely for it. There's everybody's heard of Chuck Ellswick, Mad Dog, the person who he always runs these underwhelming, like when you look at a piece of paper, these dark horse lists. I am also named Chuck, but I do not get to use the Chuck name because my lists were not effective or working.
Which he did last year at at last Warfare weekend. He brought the 2 colossal list, and it totally owned everybody because nobody was expecting 2 colossal lists and 75 points.
Yeah. Yep.
Because it was 2 Retribution colossals, and people were like, "What the fuck?" And
was it Retribution? I thought it was Kador. I thought he was running 2 Kador colossals with.
I thought it was Retribution. You could be wrong.
I can't think of the name of the Warcaster. It was.
Honestly, you got me because I have no clue. I wasn't part of that. I'll have to ask Zeke and find out.
They say as you get older, the first thing that goes in memory, and after that, I can't remember. So.
More than
that. I think it was Kovnik, not Kovnik, the Assault Commando caster.
Strakov?
Yeah, I think it was Strakov and 2 Conquests.
Either way, people were not prepared for that.
Yeah.
Anyone, it literally hands down, it wasn't even a competition for him mostly. Because nobody was expecting it. Because everybody was expecting Mark IV stuff. And
I think it was Mel Brooks who said it best. Nobody was expecting the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah. And so he won that pretty hands down. Talking about some stuff about, we're talking about the War Machine stuff, but what do you actually do for SFG? Because you got hired on from SFG to from Privateer Press type thing, and I know there's a lot of people that like, why didn't they take everybody? And we're like, well, it's a company, guys. They have to do what they have to do. But why did you get picked, and what do you do?
I got picked, I think, because I just had the largest overall skill set to fill in gaps and needs. Almost every job I've worked through the gaming industry, I've always been in a position where when something comes up that's unknown or somebody's not sure how to handle it or we don't really have a process or procedure for it, I've just always kind of stepped in and filled that role. And so I've just got a really good adaptability, and then I have the ability to paint, so I think they were hoping to take some skill sets there and make hobby insiders as we go along. I do a little bit of everything though for Steamforged Games when it comes to privateer old stuff like the Iron Kingdoms, War Machine in particular. I write the blogs that go up on throughout the week, like War Machine Wednesdays. Make sure that when you log on and read something, the email blasts that go out that tell you, hey, specials on the website, check out this cool thing, stuff like that. I also do the painting blogs that pop up, write them, edit them, edit the photos, post them. I do some small stuff with events. I do a little bit with our influencers and the reach out programs. I do I set up rules previews, try and get those out. A little bit of everything, honestly.
Okay.
Well, it sounds like.
I wear many hats because there's not much hair. There's not enough hair, so I wear many hats.
So, okay. Checking on thing. You were talking about painting. I think that's how me and you actually kind of got started, because I don't know what it was, but we were talking about painting and such, and that's how we got started on the subject, and I think how we become friends, because I I don't consider myself a great painter. I just consider myself a painter because I like to do it. I like to look in things, and I can pull out. I got a good sense of color and palette and stuff like that. But I don't have the skill set as much because I don't get a lot of time.
So I
And
don't think I'm gonna argue with you on a couple things there, like I always do.
I'm
Do it,
waiting.
argue.
I don't think that like you don't have to paint a perfect golden winning, Crystal Brush award winning, master Adepticon special model to be a great painter. I think that there are much different levels to painting than just the aspiration of winning a competition painting.
Correct.
Myself and most of the people that I think enjoy painting the most typically shoot for, as we've talked about, the master of 3 feet. If I'm standing atop looking down at a model on a table and it's about 3 feet away, how good does it look there? And that's really all it needs to be. And everybody I know is better at that than I am, I think. Gonzo, yours is great. Mizzy, your stuff looks fantastic. Like, if you're painting at that 3 feet range, though, and your models look absolutely great on the tabletop, who cares? That's a masterful painter to me. That's like a great level painting.
I'm just painting for joy, man.
I don't know
The
who Joy
bisexual
is.
pirate.
My joy, my inner joy.
Oh,
Fuck you, Gonzo.
I thought we were talking about. I thought there was some person I didn't know named Joy, and I needed to meet her.
No.
So I bring this up because this last Adepticon we were playing in one of the narrative events, I think, and I had my Troll Bloods, and I like the Troll Bloods. I like playing them. They're great sculpts. They're fucking detailed beyond belief, but they take forever to paint.
Well, I mean, the average Troll Blood starter pack includes 2 whole chickens, 3 starfish, 5 ropes, 1,600 mollusks, 2 mussels, a bag of cannons, just 3 chickens, a pot and pan, whatever's on the kitchen sink, 300 whelps. I mean, there's just so many little things that are everywhere.
All of the fucking barnacles.
Yes, all 600.
Love them, but goddamn these barnacles.
The barnacle to troll ratio is like a TV. It's how many barnacles per inch do you get on an average troll?
Yeah.
So you get that 600 BPI, 600 barnacles per inch. But no, I agree with you. They're fantastic looking models. They're just really detailed, and they take a lot of time to get all that detail painted.
And so that was whenever, I was like, you're right. From 3 feet away, they look great. Up close.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. And up close, they're just meh, average, decent looking type thing. Not bad. They're not horrible looking. But when I'm painting, I don't even think about that I'm painting for 3 feet away. I'm just painting to make, okay, I've got this touched, I've got this touched, I've got a little bit of here, a little bit of there. Everything is looking decent. The leather's painted like leather, etc., etc. And then you made that comment. You're like, "Hey, your stuff looks really good." I'm like, "What? Are you fucking high?" And you were like, "You made that comment." No, it's the 3 foot rule.
Yeah. So it's like the easiest way to do it is when you're painting a model, you've got your paintbrush up here, you're doing all this detail work, you're going in, you're doing well, and then you take that moment where you're like, hey, okay, this is what I've got. I'm done painting this one highlight, and then you step back and you like look at it and you're like, yeah, that looks good. That's what you're really shooting for, because that's all you need to have. I will say that I can paint to a level that I'm really like, hey, I'm really working on this, is impressed. I'm challenging myself and getting to the next level. But I will tell you that the number of unpainted models in that army are way more than the painted ones. Versus when I go to a tournament or something and I show up and a person's across from me with 100% painted, I'm like, their models are going to roll better. They're all painted. They get +1 to all their dice. I know this. I know this how it's worked. If those were unpainted models, those 4s would be 3s.
Yeah, we all know a painted model does better than an unpainted model.
100%. It does.
That's why I want to get these battle birds painted, because I need to roll better.
I love those models. I have not painted mine. there's so much detail on them, and I'm trying to convince myself I gotta like hype myself up. But right now I'm on a Crix count, like a Crix kick for Warfare Weekend, so that's where the majority of my painting is going currently.
So yesterday, both of these were basically primered.
That is way more impressive than unless you've painted one. I don't think people understand how impressive that actually is.
I am working my ass off here.
Yeah, they're a big model, and as a Brine Bloods model, they got a shit ton of detail. People don't understand how much detail is on those.
600 feet of rope, 400 barnacles, 2 anchors. Don't know why they need anchors, but they have 2. 3 snakes.
Aesthetics, Charles. Aesthetics.
16 pounds of gold. 20 sandbags.
And all the whelps on there.
A gator, 3 whelps, 4 hams.
Is it 3 or 4? It's
3.
4. Because there's one on top, and then there's 3 in the ship.
Yes. So I always forget the one that's riding Lookout on top of the flag.
So much shit. So, since you're in the midst of a major paint challenge, how are you breaking that down? Because that's my kicker, is I look at this and I'm like, shit, I have so much Crix to paint, and I got overwhelmed, and I was like, this is just not going to happen.
So the success and failure rate are very high. I have this really weird thing of like right before Warfare Weekend every year, giving myself some over-the-top insane challenge that I know is unachievable, but I like to see how far along I can push myself to get to it.
So you're sadistic, is what you're telling me.
A little. Okay. I should
actually or masochistic.
Yeah. It's both. Yeah. So for this one, I'm trying to paint as much of Crix field allowance as humanly possible. So I have like 4 Machine Wraith Dominators. I've got 2 of the Night Terrors, the 4 Scarlock Lieutenants. I'm trying to paint as much FA as humanly possible for Crix, which is a terrible plan because I know that I can't do that. So I need to kind of like realistically set expectations. If possible, I like to assembly line stuff. It is a little mind-numbing, and you don't get the enjoyment of going, oh, I painted this one thing really well, it looks good, now I'm going to get the next one. But you paint quicker, though, if you're doing all of the same color at once versus if you're swapping colors constantly to get through to different things. That being said, I am not doing that, even though I know it's a smart play. I'm just kind of picking the models that are in my most known lists and trying to knock those out as quickly as possible, and then going back and then doing things that I know that I might want to try out over the weekend.
Well, because constantly you're like, oh, this is going to be a really fun list. I'm going to paint this up. And then you're like, wait a minute. I found this new combo. I've got to paint this up.
Yeah. I have the worst ADHD when it comes to list building, and I do it for everything that I do game-wise. I'll like come up with this like really cool synergy combo. I think I got it from playing Magic is where I picked it up the most from, because like I like to play combo decks, or then I like to play an aggro deck, then I'll play a control deck. Then there's this like random guy who won a Japanese small tournament with this one deck that runs this weird artifact that no one's ever heard of, and I'm like, I'm 100% in. That looks like the complete jankiness that I would love to play. And then so of course that translated to like War Machine, where I'm like, all right, I want to do pirates, and then I'm going to run these cannons, and now I'm going to run this all jack list and Crix, and then I want to run the Harbinger with like this specific weird loadout and list. Like I'll just like jump from list to list to list to list to list, which is probably why none of my stuff, like none of my factions get fully painted ever. I have like the list that I have, and that's the only thing that's painted.
So what is your current janky list that you're looking at?
At 50 points, I have 3 heavies and an Eviscerous list that I might or may not. I still need to kind of like think through it for the team tournament on Sunday at Warfare Weekend. However, I've also got just these weird, like, I don't even know how to describe. They're not optimal. Let's put it that way. I need to do a little bit more research, play some more games, and kind of like tune things down. I have a list that I absolutely love, like Trollblood wise. I've got a bunch of lists that I'm like super happy with. Vroggers at 23-inch threat ranges are pretty silly and can go hunting for stuff. But for the most part, I don't have anything too crazy over there inside Troll Bloods.
Okay.
Crix, I just literally started playing games with this past week.
Well, it's because I just came out this last week, pretty much.
Yeah. So, but I took it up to the store, played a few games. Now I'm like, okay, now I got to paint everything and kind of like figure out what I want to be my 75 and 100 points.
Okay.
How do you narrow down your options?
I'll do a couple things. I'll try and play 3 or 4 games. Specifically, like I'll have the caster that I want to play, like Decathus, or I'll have Viscerus, whatever caster I'm focusing on, and then I will completely skew the list to be as much of one style of thing. So if I'm running, for instance, a Viscerus with a very melee heavy list, I'll run like 4 Malefactors, and I'll focus on building something around to kind of like push the envelope on a specific point inside the list. And then once I figure out if I'm like, I like the style of play or I don't like the style of play for what I want it to do, so I'll kind of like choose. I know my opponent, like, hey, this guy plays Dusk every week when he comes into the store, so I'll be like, hey, Chase, you wanna hop in, get a game? Did you bring Dusk this week? Or hey, did you bring Legion? Like, what are you bringing this week for gun lines? Like, are you bringing a gun line list? And try and squeeze out some information on like, hey, does this work well for what it's intended to do to the extreme that I wanted to do it? Then I'll take those options out of the list and then put in filler parts and then rebuild the list in a different way so that it goes the opposite. So I'll take like a bunch of shooting warjacks, but I'll take a lot of melee troops so that I try and build certain aspects of it. And then I just kind of like put the pieces that I like together. And then that narrow plus or minus points that I need to like fill in, I look to see if there's anything that I can do to kind of like sway that list more skewed to what I want to run. But ultimately, like, I think it also depends on like what faction you're playing in. So there are factions that are inherently better at answering meta or open style gaming questions. So things like Legion, who just says yes to everything. Can I do this? Absolutely. Can you ignore stealth? Why not? Of course I can. So when you're building lists out of those factions, you kind of take on the little bit of themes and styles that they're playing with and kind of like build your list around like, how do I capitalize on their passive abilities inside those factions as well? Or something like Protectorate, who does the do you want to do that? Absolutely not. Can I have upkeep spells? No, I don't think you need to have that. So they're a bunch of control and denial lists. So they have this great passive build in those factions and armies for specific things. So I try and build around those. But like Crix right now, I'm a little like doing a little bit of everything, trying to figure it out because it's a very different style that I normally play with. I didn't play Crix in any of the Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3 days. So I don't have that passive voice of what Crix is supposed to be. So building the lists that I am, it's very much from the ground up. Like, okay, I like this caster. I like these spell racks. I like these units. I don't like those units. I cannot seem to get those to live long enough.
Or they don't output enough.
Yeah, once they get there, do they put out enough damage? I would say that like that also comes to like personal preference, though. I don't think that's necessarily the fault of the model or the rules of the model. I think it also has the fault of the guy pushing the models around the table with a tape measuring stick. Hey, if you just put these in the forest, they live 2 turns longer. Oh, yeah. A little bit of concealment action works pretty well.
Maybe.
Just maybe.
Are you saying that I should not turn around, run backwards directly towards you?
That used to be, but not anymore, remember? No arcs.
Yeah. No arcs. But the sentiment is still there. If I run backwards at my opponent, perhaps I can get there.
Confuse them.
It would definitely confuse me.
Yeah.
So,
you were saying that you do painting and you do like painting guides and stuff for everything. What's it like doing that? Because I know that, it's not just you painting a model, take a picture, paint a model, take a picture, that type of thing. I know there's more to it than that, of course.
I wish it was that easy. I'd probably do a lot more. I'd probably do a lot more. So for like doing painting insiders, there's a couple different ways you can do it. The first is if I have a really good idea of what I want to do, I'll actually write out the outline for the painting guide ahead of time.
Uh-huh.
So I'll pick out like the colors that I want to use for my base, my shades, my highlights, glazes, whatever I'm doing, and then I'll write all of that out ahead of time and then just recreate it by taking pictures of each step as I do it. But when you're doing a painting guide, I mean, there's a lot of steps involved. You need to paint the model, you need to write up the article, you need to take the photos, you need to edit the photos, edit the blog, lay out the blog, upload the finished photos, post it for an internal review, see if there's any changes or edits that come back, and then finally post it and then let the people see it. So, I mean, there's usually quite a bit. I would say that, like, creating one is a lot of work. It can be a short turn, but it's usually pretty involved. I would say that an average is probably 10 to 12 hours for something like a medium or large base model, and then it goes down or up compared to what it is. Like a unit takes a little bit longer because you've got 4 or 5 models. 3 to 6 simple sections on a model will also make it simple. So if you're painting something up and it's got something that's like a real simple layout. It's just got a shirt, it's got pants, boots, a face, skin. I mean, that's probably just a couple of hours. But then when you look at something like I think last year before Warfare Weekend, I did the double airship blog. I mean, that was the longest article I ever did. I think it took about 120 hours to actually do both of those 120 millimeter models because there was the blimp material itself, the ropes, the pilots. The pilots had a jacket, a scarf, glasses. The gunners had goblin skin, so there was 2 different sets of skin tones. There was the flat black bluish capsule underneath it, all the wood grain, the basing material, and then every time you get something done and you think you're done with it, there are times when you can hand it over to the internal editor or the person who's looking at it, and then they'll come back with changes, and you need to go back to the model, make a change. Hey, don't like how this looks. Can you clean this up a little bit? And for a studio painter, it's pretty easy. Studio painters have been doing this painting. It's their professionalism. It's what they've been doing for years, decades, and sometimes their entire life. So like Clay Williams or Josh Berman, who if we like, they've done painting for us. If we're like, hey, can you change like this set of feathers? We want it to be a little bit darker. They're like, okay, no problem. And like 25 minutes later, they're like, wizard, like a cloud of green dust appears, and now there's this newly painted model. Versus when I'm doing it, I'm like, I don't know how to do this without like really repainting something and painstakingly going through stuff. So it takes me a little bit longer than a studio guy or somebody who's the equivalent of a studio person painting. But then once it's all done and it's posted, you're hopeful people enjoy it. At least like I try and paint it for people who are average painters like myself, and you're just like, please be gentle. I know there's some stuff that I could have probably done better.
Okay.
There's a French painter out there who has offered feedback on every insider I've ever done, and I can't tell if he's sincere or if he's just like genuinely trying to like offer a quick like, hey, constructive criticism, like do this. But it's clearly going through like Google Translate. English is not the preferred language, so when it comes to me, it's like, did you know that you forgot to shade all this part? And it's like it comes off very aggressive, and I always laugh, and I'm like, I don't know if he's being serious. And then like I'll sit there and stare at the model for like hours on end, going, maybe I should have should I redo that and like retake the photo and repost it? Like it gets in your head after a while. You're like, that feedback eats at you.
Yeah. But do they tell you? Does the studio tell you? Does SFG say, "Hey, you have to do an insider on this model or whatever"? Or did
No,
Privateer Press do that? Or it was just like whatever.
sometimes Privateer would do that. Like we'd get something right before the acquisition. We were getting ready to launch like the Frog Cadre for Southern Creoles, and so they would send one out to me, and they'd be like, "Hey, when you get a chance, start doing insiders on some of the Frog Cadre, so we can start popping these in as we get closer to when we're launching." Versus one of the things that we're trying to build with like Steamforged Games, we're setting a really realistic schedule. We're really defining where we go. So I'm trying to put together painting blogs that will go kind of side by side of some of the releases, so that when you are getting really excited about getting them for yourselves and painting them, there's also this handy guide like, hey, this would be nice to have if I wanted to paint something. The bigger problem is though that I like to do alternate schemes on most of my stuff. So when people are like, "Oh, I'm getting into this Signar. I want to. How do I paint Signar blue?" And instead, I'm like, "Here are these bright greens and teals." You know, so it's one of those things where I get torn between, should I do traditional style paints or should I not do traditional style painting on some of the models, and when and where is it best to show off both. So occasionally, I do get the option to show off both, and
So
I will do that as often as I can.
talking about painting and such and everything, have you had a chance to mess around with the new P3 paints? Did you get it like a set to play with? Can you talk about that? I don't want you to get in trouble if you can't, but
I got a small sample set because I begged. No, I can't talk about everything because the Kickstarter is not something that I do. So one of the things that changed when I was with Privateer, I had access to pretty much everything. I was always wired into every department. I always got messages and updates anytime anything happened. So if there was an issue with like production, like, hey, we're going to move this back to adjust this timeline, I would have a little bit of visibility. The Steamforge is a much larger company with more staff, so I'm kind of in my marketing house working with the marketing team on marketing things, versus I don't get as many updates, or I get the top line basically of like what's going on. So with P3 though, I was able to beg and plead and like, please give me one sample set. I would like to try these paints because I've been using P3 forever, just like a lot of people who are hobbyists and painters. P3 is one of those insanely great paints that have just made up like the workhorse of blending in almost all of my stuff. So they were nice enough. They sent me out a small sample set of the paints, and they are fantastic. I cannot emphasize how awesome now are. The original P3 metallics actually had bigger metallic flakes in the paint, which is one of the like, we got really rich metallics out of it. The problem is that like the paint would separate pretty often over time, and it could be a little bit harder to work with or try and thin because it doesn't really take to thinning very much. Versus the new stuff is on another, like, it is the best metallic paints that I have ever interacted with, and I cannot wait to get the full range because only having 2 metallic paints is not enough from that line.
That's
like,
fair.
you've given me the first hit's free, and I'm just sitting here. I'm like, give me more P3.
What would you say your favorite color is from P3?
In terms of all of P3, the old line. This is a loaded question because there are the paint colors. There are the paint colors that I really like, and then there are the paint colors that I use most often.
Okay.
So for my favorite color, I never get to use it, but I absolutely love it. I love Amethyst Rose, which has been renamed into a different paint over in the new P3 line. Just the richness of that red. It's such a dark maroon color that it's just fantastic. I never get to use it though, like in almost anything. The most common paint I would actually say that I use though in most of my insiders is probably Umbral Umber. It just works wonders. It's a really good dark medium for when you want to do something that has a little bit of dirt and grime in it. It works really well for laying down base coats, shading. It does fantastic things when you mix it with inks and then put it over the top of some of the metallics so that you can shift tones out of it. Like I think that I lied. I know what it is. My favorite color is coal black.
I was waiting for it because I'm like, that is the color.
I was sitting there.
Everybody loves coal black, man.
I was like, what color do I use the most, and what color do I enjoy using the most? It's coal black. It's coal black. I'm sorry, I lied. As much as I like Amethyst Rose, coal black is used on like every model I've ever painted in one way or another. Either it's in a blend, or it's in a highlight, or it's in a shade. It's in everything. But yeah, coal black. It's such a neat one. And then I was laughing because if you read through some of the comments on Kickstarter, I think it was one of the guys that got a sample set was like, "This isn't coal black," and I'm like, "You don't understand. You weren't there at the beginning. Coal black is a fantastic colored paint, and you have to know what P3 is to get what coal black is." And so it was exciting though. I love coal black. I have 2 pots of it sitting on my desk at all times.
Oh yeah,
Most,
yeah.
most people most people have like an albuterol inhaler as their emergency reach for. I have 2 pots of coal black paint.
Yeah, I used my new Magnus with Invictus. I painted them in coal black.
Ooh, you should share some photos of that because I have never seen your Magnus and Invictus.
I'll have to do that. But yeah, because it actually turned into a because I use this in all over, not like a shading or a highlighting.
But like an actual true color.
Yeah, so I use it as a true color, and it was green. It came out like a very dark, army style green when I painted it, and I was like, oh, okay, because I airbrushed it on because I was like, okay, let me try this, and I was like, oh, that's kind of neat, but it turned into a dark green, which was weird. But I'm for it because it was neat. It looks neat and it's different. So, going back to we're doing. People that go to conventions know this and know this well, that there's always this crunch time of getting models ready for competition, because everything's a lot of places are now starting to require painted for everything. Now Warfare Weekend, the only thing that requires painting for War Machine side is of course the Iron Gauntlet and stuff. What do you suggest people do, or do you have any good stories of what people should do to get ready for this stuff besides, stay up 24 hours drinking Red Bulls all night to get your army painted?
So power tools. No. The for the most part, I mean, like, try and get locked in on what list you have or what you want to run early, because that gives you the biggest amount of time to paint the smallest amount of models, versus if you're insane like I do, I try and paint everything and then build lists from what I have when I get to the show. That's not the best place to do that. Because then that's when you end up at the hobby lounge going, does anybody have any coal black? I just need like 1 pot of coal black. I just need to get it done. Does anybody have sand for basing? And somebody's chewing on walnuts, and you're like, crushed walnuts is close enough. I'll take some of those. And you're like, I wasn't offering it. I wasn't asking.
I'm just taking.
Yeah, I'm taking. Is anybody? No. But when you get to conventions, like to prep for conventions, I try and do it like the latest I want to do it is like 3 weeks out for my personal models. When we're doing stuff for like an eventual convention for a company like Privateer or Steamforged Games, it's a different story because it just depends on what's being asked of the employees too. So like Gen Con this year, I'll start asking for what we need to do and paint for Gen Con sometime back in early April, and then I try and have it locked in and to me by May at the latest, so that I have June, July, and August to paint it, essentially, to get ready for whatever show it is for that season. Adepticon for next year, I wish in a perfect world, I'd have the models no later than January for whatever we're doing, so that I could do some work on that or make whatever showcase stuff we're going to do. And then in terms of like personal armies, though, it's always a rush for me because I'm so indecisive. I've got that faction ADD. I don't know what I want to play. I don't know what I want to paint. So when I like right now, I have literally all this Crix across my desk, and I think I know what my Viscera 75 is, so I'm reaching for those models right now, and I'm like, I'm gonna get these painted. They're the thing that I need to prioritize. So what went from 30 models is now 10 more models. I'm down to 10. Oh no, I lied. There's 3 over there. 13 more models. I bring to you these 10 unpainted models as something falls over and breaks in the background. So, nope, we're down to 13 unpainted models for my 75 point of Viscera's list, which sounds like a lot now that I say it out loud. Like, it's only 13 models, but
you cut your paint list in half. That's impressive.
Give
yourself a little bit of credit.
Let's get the pat on the back there. 3, 6, 9. 9 of them are large base models, though. 3 Malefactors, 3 Night Terrors, and Chatterbane are unpainted. I need to get those done as soon as possible.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if you paint like me and it's just a bunch of shit dry brushing, it's a different story. But you've challenged yourself with this army, though, didn't you?
Yeah, so actually, one of the things that we've talked about is I like to try and challenge myself every time I do a new army or a new faction. Something that I'm uncomfortable with, something I've never done before. So, for instance, on Crix, the thing that's intimidated me most in the painting world ever is non-metal metallics. I've always seen people do it. They're like, oh, it's so easy. All you have to do is try and do it, and then like it's just so intimidating because it's not what I've known. I want to try it though. But after 2.5 years of putting it off, I said, that's it. When Crix comes out, I'm going to try non-metal metallics for the first time. I'm going to do it. Let's see what I can do. And most of that is the fault of the people that are around me that have been painting for like Privateer for the last 2.5 years. Eric Swinson, Clay, and Josh Berman all have these insane skill sets when it comes to painting non-metal metallics on their miniatures, and they do it so what looks like effortlessly and so beautiful. You're just like, all right, I have to learn how to do that. I have to at least get to like the Timu or the Wish value of whatever they're doing, so that I can, like, yeah, I ordered a Rolls Royce, but you know the Fisher Price Yugo wagon that showed up, it looks like a car. It kind of gets there. So it's one of those things. So like I'm working heavily on, so I can get this to focus for a second there, doing non-metal metallics. I've done an Insider for a Viserys. I've done a Scarlock for all. And then this weekend, I managed to convince myself to start really going ham on the models, and I actually finished up my Machine Wraith Dominators.
So, yeah, because they don't have hardly any metallic on them, so it should have been pretty easy, right?
That's not their only metallic, sir. You're full of lies. Yeah, the whole like center of their body. When I set out to do the machinery, I thought there would be like, I'm like, oh, it's just flowing cloth. It'll be so easy. And then as I actually got in there and started painting, I was like, that is the biggest lie I've ever told myself. Everything in the center of the model, every detail of the model is a metallic surface.
Correct. Yeah.
Like,
which, by the way, is an amazing model. It looks amazing once you've got it out and you can see it because it's got a really cool pose. But yes, I agree with you. There's a lot of metal on there.
Yeah, and then I made this like challenge to myself though, that like every time I do a new army to try and challenge myself, and so coming out and saying I'm going to do non-metal metallics on Crix, and then try and in 3 weeks try and paint the faction was a terrible plan. And now I'm looking at my clock going, all right, I got 9 days until I get on a plane. I need not even 9 days. What are we down to now?
Try not to think about it.
9. It is 9. I have 9 days. 9 days to finish painting. You know, I would like to get 2 75-point lists, and I'm not even out of a Viserys yet. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean,
are you freaking out like the mayor from Nightmare Before Christmas yet?
Oh, absolutely. The composure is here. I'm trying to give that nice, cool, professional, relaxed kind of feel. But like in the back of my mind, like I feel like Principal Skinner. Like the kitchen's on fire behind me. You just can't see it. I've got Aurora Borealis. It's just the open kitchen flame. Everything's on fire.
That's why your background's blurred.
It is. It is. The background is blurred behind me because I don't know what's there and what's not there. So there could be some stuff that's are not supposed to be shown, some things that could be shown, but I don't want to risk the chance. So instead, you have to look at the face that was built for radio in my sweet Pokemon water shirt.
But Pokemons.
I know, right?
It's legit. I kind of want to touch on that. You have to hide stuff, and everything's going to be secret. But there's a reason behind all the secrecy on things, because there's always people that are like, just tell us what you're doing, tell us how you're doing, tell us what this is, tell us so forth. And I'm like, guys, there's reasons behind keeping things secret from an industry standpoint,
Well, not
because
just from.
go
Sure,
ahead.
there's the obvious one that's the industry standpoint where we don't want to spoil things because I don't want you to get too excited about the rules for something that's coming out in 3 months and then not get excited about something that's coming out in 8 months.
Yeah.
Like there's an actual you want to stagger spoilers, you want to put things in a specific order so that when you guys see like concept art, it's followed up by like a heroes and villains that tie into it, or here's the painted miniature, and then here's the rules, and here's when it goes out for order, so now you can order it so that it all goes in like a linear process. But there's the part of showmanship, right? Like there's the part of like the magician. You don't want to know how the trick is done entirely because you want to believe the magic has got that a sense of
That's
realism,
real.
right?
Yeah.
That it's real.
Mhm.
And so like yeah, it's cool if you're one of the first in the know that like sees a model or sees the finished product of X, Y, or Z, or we see the rules for something or something gets spoiled. It's always cool to be the guy in the know, but at the same time, like you want to keep some of that mystery alive.
Yeah.
But I know all the industry, and I'm an armchair CEO, and sorry, that's me getting
There are a lot of professional armchair CEOs out in the forums. We wish their businesses well. So there are some people that do definitely chime in though in some of those forums and places that it comes off kind of like an armchair CEO, but they're legitimately trying to like say, hey, I've got this idea that can help, X, Y, or Z, and I'll be the first person to admit, like the time that I spent at Valve, like I don't like the term industry expert or an expert of X knowledge because a person who is considered to be an expert usually is a person who's considered to be like done learning, and I don't feel like that's the best way to go forward on any topic just in general. Like if you're unwilling to learn new things about an industry or a specific skill set or something like that, then I don't feel like you yourself can consider yourself an expert in the industry anymore, because the kid out of college that just learned 2 new things now is technically more knowledgeable than you are because you don't want to learn something new like a process or a technology or whatever it may be to help you or whatever your process is step forward.
we only got like a few minutes left before we have to go to our media section. But the one thing I want to ask you, and it's just for pure shits and giggles. So we've got a lot of releases that have come out. Which release or information was the hardest to hold? That you're at a convention, you're talking about something, someone's like, yeah, if we did this, and you're like, I can't. You're like, yeah, we're gonna do, and you just like have to hold yourself because it's coming out, but you're not going to say it because of course you're not going to get in trouble with your job. But what
That
is one secret that was the hardest to hold on to that is actually out now?
Butcher 5 was one. It's actually my favorite because there was a painter, the guy who won Depticon this last year, came up to
The
the booth.
P3.
Yeah, the
Okay.
guy from Korea. He came up to the booth. He had entered Butcher 3 and a Butcher 1 that he had painted, and I mean it was, if you hadn't watched the guy pull it out of his bag, it was to the point where the quality was like really high enough that it could have been mistaken for a studio model. It was
Dang.
on another level. This guy was a competitive painter for sure, and he loves War Machine. And he looked Doug square in the eye and said, if you guys ever do a Butcher 5 and you send one to me, I will studio quality paint one and send it back to you if you could ever sculpt it. And at the time, Doug was already like knees deep into sculpting Butcher 5. So
That's glorious.
there was definitely a time when we sat down at dinner and just looked at each other like, you gonna send him the model? Is he gonna send one back? So, but it was definitely one of the funnier interactions where it was hard to like not say anything. Well, hey, give us 6 months and then check the news. Stuff like that pops up all the time though. But like, it's not hard for me to want to not spoil something, even if I get it in advance knowledge on it, just because I want people to just kind of have that the experience of like a kid opening a Christmas present, like right, like you don't. I get more excitement out of watching somebody else hear it for the first time when it comes out of like a channel, or like when we'll put up. I'm trying to think of something that the Black 13th from last week. When the Black 13th went up, I got 7 or 8 messages on my phone that just people were like, "Oh my gosh, the Black 13th is back. These rules are insane. Oh my gosh, are they really supposed to have 8 health?" Just the 40 questions. They were just so excited, and that enthusiasm and the pure joy of seeing somebody get that experience is for me like worth more than being the person who's the guy who gets to say, "Hey, here Black 13th rules." Da da da. Like
I will tell you, I got the same thing. So people know that I do testing and such, and they're like, "Oh my God, the Black 13th back." They're like, "How long have you been working on it?" And I was like, "Well, we've been working on it." I don't give you details or whatever, but they're like, they get stupid excited. They're like, "Holy shit!" And I got that too. That question too is like, "Do they really have 8 health?" Yes, they have 8 health.
Mm-hmm. Mark 3 does not equal Mark 4. That is my favorite go-to line that nobody appreciates. Mark 3 does not equal Mark 4. Mark 4 has its own things. No, but like Gen Con this year, I was able to convince Rich, one of the owners, and Matt to let us bring one of the mini crate models. We were gonna get Sabrith the Eternal, the mini crate model, and I was like, what if we just put it in the case? Just don't tell anyone it's there. Let's see if anybody finds it. It took like 5 minutes after we put it in the case for somebody to find it, because all of our fans are super eagle-eyed people, and they're like, "What is that? That is the coolest looking. Is that a mini crate model? Is that an altar sculpt? What is it? Can I have that? Where do I buy that?" But I was like, let's do a shock and awe. Let's just stick it in the case and see what happens, and see if people get genuinely excited about it. And like, I love working for SFG because the pure joy of working on cool models and cool miniatures has continued with Matt and Rich, because the two creative owners and the guys who run the company have been diehard War Machine fans since back in the days of Mark 1. They were press gangers. They run major events all over the UK. So having somebody take and shepherd on the game itself that is truly passionate about the game, like, they are very protective in how the game is being developed. They're very protective in how we're executing marketing. They feel the same frustrations as a player when something's not in stock at a retailer location, and they're constantly messaging like, how do we improve the quality for overall miniatures? How do we improve the shipping process? How do we get more stock readily available? Like, these guys are so involved in the game, and it's so good to see somebody that has that like burning passion for something to also be the shepherds of the legacy continuing forward. So like, working for Matt and Rich has just been like an instant, like, okay, no brainer. So when we get cool ideas to do new things and try new stuff, or do things and revisit some stuff that worked in the past, these guys are like, all right, yeah, no, I totally remember that was one of those like things that I really liked out of like going to a convention or seeing a show or doing this thing. Like, this was something that was super passionate for me. So it's an instant translate, and the ideas aren't just pitching to, here's an executive with an idea, like, hey, I have this idea, and they're like, what's the financial returns here, what's the profitability? Those conversations are kind of down the road and not almost existent, compared to like, what can we do to make the player's experience the absolute best? How do we make sure that the product is the best for the customer base, but also like, how are we going to make sure that the joy and love of the game continues to burn? So
we got a little bit of work to do.
Yeah.
Right. No pressure.
2025 will be a crazy year for us.
Oh yeah.
We'll see how much sleep I lose and how much coffee and caffeine I can consume to keep the ball rolling.
We're going to switch over to our media section. Charles, you are new to this, but we will give you what you, too far. what our rating system and everything is. As you know, we have two rating systems. One is how closer is this movie to Casablanca to Cats, with Casablanca being the best movie made, Cats being the worst movie ever made, or how few space herpes it is, because nobody wants to get herpes. So, and space herpes are extra worse. So the fewer the space herpes, the better. We'll get started off so we can give you, an idea. We'll get you into this. So one of the things I watched was I saw this on there, and I think it's on the Stars Network. Was the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and it is the Hollywoodized version of Operation Postman, where they were still in a U-boat still in a boat that had a bunch of U-boat parts and stuff. But it was kind of the first time that they've done things, top secret, under the books type thing, and I like movies like this. I don't mind. War movies, getting things over on people, stuff like that. Of course, as soon as I watched it, I went and go, what's the true story behind it, type thing. And they were like, this is completely Hollywoodized, but it did happen, type thing. So, and they did show the actual people at the end of it and told them, what they did after this exercise or this stealing of this boat and such. Overall, the movie was okay. It wasn't bad. Very violent, very bloody. There was a lot of deaths. I mean, the amount of bullets and the amount of people that died in this was astronomical. And it was all Nazis, so it was worth it, type thing. But no, it was a lot of violence in this movie. Very interesting. I like seeing the real part of it. But as a movie, it was okay. It was like 1.5, maybe 2 space herpes. So it wasn't bad. It just wasn't great. It was just okay. It was just there. What wasn't my meh of 2.5, but it was a little bit higher because it had some good lines and some good action, and then it got me educated on what really happened. So I enjoyed it. Missy, what's your first one?
So since Nestor was on the show last week and he was watching all them spooky movies, he got me in the mood for spooky movies as well. So I finally watched Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I am not disappointed. I really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's got Asa Butterfield in it as a baby. Well, as a baby compared to what he is in Sex Education, anyway. Samuel L. Jackson is great as a villain and as a good guy, and he plays a really good villain in this. So, all these different kids have different abilities and stuff, so they're peculiar children, and they're in this time loop, and but then these horror things come in, eat their eyeballs and stuff. So creepy. They end up taking down the bad guy, do the things. Tim Burton is the one that directed it, and at one point I saw a couple of flickers of him like in the carnival scene. I thought I was like, yeah, he put that in. So, yeah, I would give it a 1.5. There's a couple of things that they probably could have done better, but overall it was super fun, and I really liked it.
Cool. Charles?
I will start off with the Lord of the Rings Amazon TV series, Rings of Power, season 2 is what I watched. That was my big thing this week. It is fantastic. I would preface that I am also a cinephile, love movies. I can be snobby about movies. You will never find me enjoying stuff with Ben Affleck or Jared Leto in it. However, I would say that despite any inaccuracies between like the Silmarillion or any of Lord of the Rings story, if you're just watching the series as a series for the actors and the story that they're crafting, I found it very enjoyable. So I would give it a probably, I wouldn't say it's Casablanca. I would say that it is somewhere probably like 1.5 space herpes.
Yeah, I watched it too, and it was, I mean, there was some stuff I was like, turn my brain off, get rid of the Silmarillion out of my head, and just enjoy the show, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that there's not a lot of there's not a preamble or anything that goes before the show that says like, hey, due to copyrights, we weren't able to take from these source materials. But if you actually go look at what they're actually able to pull from in terms of like materials they're allowed to use and then use in the show, they have the letters that were published by J.R.R. Tolkien, and I think like the Christmas letters, and then they're allowed to pull from these random collections of works that he's done, but they're not allowed to pull from The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, The Silmarillion, Lord of the Rings by Peter Jackson, or even The Hobbit, The Hobbit Five Armies, and Desolation of Benedict Cumberbatch. So they're just only able to pull from these like excerpts of very small things, and for having almost no workable material, like the show was fantastic. I enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, I thought it was too. A lot of people don't understand that they weren't allowed to take from pretty much everything.
Yeah.
It was you're gonna have to make up the whole story by yourself type thing. So, I mean, I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to next season. Supposedly we're supposed to get 5. So
5 seasons?
yeah,
I can see that. I can, from the pacing that they're giving. Yeah, I can kind of see like, because we're still in like the second age and stuff like that. So
yeah, because supposedly we're supposed to get 5 seasons.
I can see that. And for taking the bar notes of a napkin with a picture of a scribbling that and then turning it into season 2, it was pretty good.
So I wanted to go with something that I watched, and the newest episode came on and had me glued. And for everybody knows that when I watch shows, I'm usually on my phone, and it's hard for me to concentrate because I've got to do other things while I'm doing it. This latest episode of The Penguin was fucking amazing. I mean, this show is. I mean, they could have. You don't have to have it as the Penguin, but having these characters to reference to the Batman series and everything else is just great. But this last story was holy crap. They showed how crazy motherfuckers can be in this show, and it was hilarious. The shit that they were pulling off, all the crazy crap, and it was the behind scenes of why this character had issues and everything. But it was really good. If you're not watching The Penguin, you're missing some really good acting, um, really good storytelling. Just overall, an amazing show. This last episode, a 0. I'll give an overall once the season's done. But damn, it was good. I'm enjoying it like crazy. Mizzy?
Of course, I'm going through and doing our weekly ritual of watching Agatha all along. And I really enjoyed this week's episode. It gave us backstory that we were wanting. I'm still not mad at it.
No, this last one was pretty good. They're actually putting it together with the MCU universe right now. This was actually a bridge to the MCU universe in a way. So
Yep.
that was one on my list too. I'm enjoying it. I can't wait to see the ending of it because I want to see if they bridge it with the MCU universe, because one of the characters in this is possibly going to be in another movie coming up. So we'll have to wait and see.
That's going to be great. If so, we'll see.
No spoilers on it yet because it's just this last episode, so we'll wait.
That's fair.
Charles?
For me, I don't know if you guys have this, but I always have like the staple that I reach for when I'm going to do a really long painting haul. Like I have a CV series that I always reach for 100% of the time when I'm like I need something that is good to listen to, something that's enjoyable to listen to, that there's enough plot. So I watched all of the Twilight Saga. No, I'm just kidding. I actually do a annual rewatch of the entire West Wing series by Aaron Sorkin, and I cleared season 1, 2, and 3 over this last 2 weeks.
Dang.
Getting in while I've been doing painting and prep and stuff. If you haven't watched the West Wing, especially with the election year that's going on, you should definitely check it out. It's a show that ran from 1999 to 2005, if I remember correctly. It has 7 seasons, 156 episodes. Each episode's approximately 45 minutes to 52 minutes. there are guest appearances from every actor under the sun, from John Belushi to John Goodman, rather, not John Belushi. John Goodman all the way back to I can't even think. There's literally so many guest appearances and actors, plus the cast itself: Bradley Whitford, Allison Janney, Janelle Maloney, Dooley Hill, Martin Sheen, Rob Lowe. I'm gonna get flack from one of those fans out there that's like, you forgot X, Y, and Z. Richard Schiff, almost forgot Toby. Can't forget Toby. Richard Schiff's a good actor. Jared Spencer. So there's just an all-star cast going through the political drama. But it's if you've never seen the show, it's not actually based on um, the West Wing and like the politics of what's going on, but rather kind of focuses on what it's like to be an individual living and working inside the White House administration. So it's a very different experience. But if you're a painter like me, the show is a very verbal dialogue versus less visual show. So you can listen to it and paint, and it's easy to kind of like follow along with the story of an episode and what's going on. Plus, I've watched it too many times, so I would give it. This show for me is the Casablanca. It is the best TV series that has ever been done, especially series 1 through 4, and then the final season were very good. So 10 out 0 space herpes, safe to ride, no protection.
My next one is I needed some. I don't want to say comfort, but just needed some good background noise of something that I didn't have to like watch because I was doing some stuff and I was like, I think I'm gonna, watch something. And I was on Star still because I got done watching the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and this movie. Let's see, I even had to pull it up on IMDb. Came out in 1995. And it is completely inappropriate, but has some of the funniest lines in it. And it's Damon Wayans in Major Pain. Um, this movie has some of the stupidest, silliest lines, and it's just the way he delivers them as Major Pain. Because of what we have here is a failure to communicate, and it's just done perfectly. And the way he laughs is like, heh heh heh, and I'm just like, it's like stupid dad joke after stupid dad joke after stupid dad joke through the entire thing. Yeah, there's a good feel, heart in this show and what you're supposed to do and everything. And, the triumph of, the bad news bear type syndrome, the underdog getting stuff. But there's just something about some of the stupid lines he says. Because I still was like, oh, does that hurt? You want me to help with that pain? I can take your mind off that pain. And they grab someone's finger and they're like, what are you doing? Oh, never mind. and they don't get it. But it's just stupid. Not hurtful comedy, but just stupid comedy that's just kind of fun. So, it holds a spot in my heart because it makes me laugh with all the stupid dad jokes and the one-liners and everything. So it's like a 1. Is it a good movie? No, but is it funny? Yes. Mizzy?
I also needed something kind of like that, and so I watched Muppets Haunted Mansion
Oh,
with
There's a
Gonzo.
Muppet?
Fear. Yes, there's there is a Muppets Haunted Mansion.
Yep.
It's mostly focused on Gonzo, the Great, not Gonzo.
You just got demoted to the lesser of Gonzo.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I did.
You went from Gonzo the Great to the Gonzo of Lesser.
Yes. So Gonzo is facing his fears, going through this mansion. He's like, I'm fearless. Yeah, no, nobody's fearless. But it's cool because he survived and rescued his friend, and it was good shenanigan fun. So I'm gonna give it a 1. And musicals.
We need more Muppet movies with the Muppets doing, like a Lord of the Rings Muppet style with Tim Curry. Always.
Yes.
Yes.
Tim Curry in every Muppet movie. I don't care what it is. They need to redo every movie as a Muppet movie, but Tim Curry's got to be in there with them.
Well, the legacy game from the Warfare Weekends of years past was, as far as I know, started by Clifton Klein, where he was like, take a movie, and you have to choose one actor to keep real, and then the rest of it's replaced by Muppets. So, for instance, if you were to take John Wick and keep Keanu Reeves, it's Keanu Reeves basically going around destroying every puppet alive.
Yeah.
Just lots of gun shooting, followed by stuffing getting thrown out into the air. Right up your point. Or do Jurassic Park and then keep Sam Neill or something, but the rest are Muppets. The T-Rex could just be Gonzo. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you could actually have Tim Curry being Elminster, or being Lord of the Rings, Gandalf. Tim Curry as Gandalf, and the rest are Muppets.
Oh, absolutely.
And you could probably do the actual actor, but it was still. I really think we need more movies done as the Muppets, because I'll tell you, what is it? The one that they did, Treasure Island.
Muppet Treasure Island.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. I mean, it's just stupid, silly
I
fun.
mean, the best version of the Christmas Carol is the Muppets Christmas Carol.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
100%.
There's some argument with Patrick Stewart's version. I will give you, and you can have that. But at the same time, it's the best. It's an unfortunate truth you have to live with.
Yeah.
Well, it's because Tim Curry acted his role like he was a Muppet, and then you've got Michael Caine, was it, that did the Christmas one, who treated the Muppets like actual actors, and that's what made them so great.
Yeah, no, it's they're good movies. Muppets Take Manhattan, The Great Muppet Escape, the Muppet Movie. I mean, these are all. If you're out there and you're thinking to yourself, I haven't seen anything that they're talking about, you yourself have failed to understand how amazing the Muppets can be.
Go live your best life and watch the Muppets.
Educate yourself. Get Kremitz. I would give that 100 Kremitz out of Kermit's.
Oh yeah. Charles, what's yours? Sorry, we got a little tangent. What's your next one?
Now, my next one is going to be Tron Legacy. I watched this week.
Oh.
Again, mostly to do because of my painting queue is really full, and I like things that have good story with an amazing soundtrack, and that checks all of them from start to finish. A fantastic cast with Jeff Bridges, Olivia Wilde, and then of course an insane soundtrack written by Daft Punk. And the reason I think this actually occurred is because somebody brought up to me that Tron Ares, the next movie that's coming, stars Jared Leto, and I was like, I can't believe Disney's going to let him destroy an easy win for what is an already great franchise. Tron Legacy was a fantastic film, and then to tie into it, if you haven't seen it, the Disney Plus version of the TV series Tron Uprising has a fantastic cast, is an amazing story, and then it gets canceled at one of the most insane cliffhangers ever. And so I went back and watched Tron Legacy to shed a tear for the fact that Jared Leto is about to destroy a movie that I love. Although, on a side note, Tron Ares is supposed to have a soundtrack written by Trent Reznor, and I'm assuming Nine Inch Nails will be working with them in accordance with it as well.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping out for hope that the soundtrack's good, and maybe they'll recast Jared Leto's part before destroying a franchise.
Or he's got a very small, minor part.
He's supposed to be the main protagonist.
No.
Yeah, but they got Jeff Bridges to come back, and I don't know if that's a selling point for me, because Jeff Bridges is kind of hitting that actor age where he's just like, whatever, I'm bored, I want to do something. And by doing another movie, he's basically invited to hang out and be that guy that everybody loves. They're like, dude, it's the man, it's Jeff Bridges. Like, everybody's excited to see him. But I mean, he's kind of hitting that like voice acting age where I'm sure he's like, kind of like, I don't want to get out of bed this morning. I just want to drink White Russians.
White Russians.
The dude. But I would give Tron Legacy, Casablanca, or Zero Space Herpes. It is a fantastic movie with a insane soundtrack.
Yeah, the soundtrack it's a good listen to no matter what. My next one is, I needed something as good background noise, and I was on Disney after watching Agatha, and I watch Avengers Endgame again. I was like, it's been a while since I watched it. Maybe I can see it again. And yeah, um, nothing new. Anything in here? I didn't see anything new. Didn't recognize anything new. I mean, I've seen it numerous times. It still gets me in the feels on certain things. Still gets me like, man, I remember when this happened, and it was like the shit. When Captain America got the hammer and went to town on Thanos, you were like, fuck him up, and he did. And that was the sit in your seat, roaring, going fuck yeah, type scene, and it's still good. It's still good because there was so much build up to this and so much going on that when it actually happened, you're like, man, my pants are creamed, and there's nothing I can do about it.
I actually just watched a behind the scenes on Endgame clip where they were talking to Tom Holland. So there's the very obvious. Are we allowed to talk about parts of that movie? It's been out for a couple years.
Yeah. We're spoiler free on that one now.
So when we're at Tony Stark's funeral, if you actually look at the people as they do the bypass of everybody's faces, and everybody's so sullen, Tom Holland's kind of got this like shit-eating grin on his face. They told him it was a wedding.
I remember hearing that, yeah.
But he was at a wedding scene, so he's like, nobody told me that like Tony Stark had died, so I'm just sitting in the background with this like haha, thumbs up, everything's great. And they're like, dude, no, it's Tony Stark's death scene. And they're like, what? And they're like, what? Why wouldn't anybody tell me this? And they're like, you spoil everything on preview scenes. So they didn't tell him what the scene was, and he just went out to do the media thing, and he was just like, yeah, there's a wedding, you don't even know.
Yeah, I know that they finally came out that they couldn't tell him anything because he can't hold a spoiler to save his life.
No. The community would love to put him in Steamforged Games and have him see all the War Machine stuff. He can't hold spoilers.
Yeah, because I know that they're being pretty tight-lipped about the next Spider-Man movie, and they're like, you got to shut your mouth, Tom. You got to shut your mouth.
They just put him on a desert island, and they're like, you can come off the desert island after the media tour and the movie's released. So that we can,
pretty much.
We're just going to send Zendaya and any other guest actor around and do the media things. Don't worry about it. We know you're Tom Holland. Everything's big. Everything's cool. But you're not allowed to talk to cameras anymore. Kind of like me after this podcast. They won't let me talk. They're not going to let me near anything. They'll be like, somebody comes up to, hey, we need somebody for a podcast. They're like, you can take anybody but Charles. It's fine.
Mizzy, you got anything else?
Oddly enough, yes. So that you brought up Tim Curry is really nice because I also watched the Rocky Horror Picture Show, or rewatched, I should say, because I've seen that movie, all the times. Still love it. Still fantastic. Tim Curry as Frankenfurter is perfection. Meatloaf as Eddie is probably my favorite. Special effects are absolute trash, but it's okay.
It's a product of its time.
Yes. So yeah, probably give it a 1 because it's a classic and I love it.
Charles, you get to ring us out with a last review. You have 3 minutes.
Yes. I watched a show called The King. It's got Robert Pattinson and Charles Charlemagne in it. Ironically, Charles Charlemagne plays an Englishman and Robert Pattinson plays a snooty Frenchman. Fantastic film. I did not realize how good of an actor Robert Pattinson can be, especially as a snooty French stuck-up man. It was way more enjoyable. The film was kind of meh, but the acting from those two were like on another level. So it really kind of like brought you into it. But you could definitely tell that like this was kind of like we're making this as a Netflix film kind of almost thing where special effects were a little bit lower than you'd see in like a full scale movie. I want to say this was probably done during or before or after COVID times, so it was like real close to that bubble. So there wasn't like a lot of there were a lot of restrictions, so they were probably working around some stuff. I would say that this is probably easily a 2 Space Herpes or not summer blockbuster, but maybe a fall flick that you just go kind of like check out at the movie theater. You're like, oh, I got like 5 hours. I'm just going to check out a movie.
we made a comment about that last week about how much Robert Pattinson gets shit for the Twilight movies and everything, but he's actually a really good actor.
I was going to say, I don't think so. First of all, I don't understand why people want to shit on the Twilight films. They're actually not that bad of films, but they're easy targets to make fun of. But like if you look in it, I love finding big name actors in backgrounds of films or like things that people did before they were like, hey, I'm this big blow up guy. True story, fifth Twilight one, Breaking Dawn Part 2 has like Rami Malek in the background playing a character. Same thing for like 300. Michael Fassbender plays a main character, but nobody ever really attributes because he's not playing Steve Jobs or Magneto or something. So I love it when movies have like these bigger actors like floating around in the backgrounds, like Vin Diesel in Saving Private Ryan, stuff like that. So it always gets me super excited to see it. But like I people that shit on the Twilight films always make me laugh a little bit. I'm like, those aren't they're an enjoyable film, and I understand the people that love the franchise, but like there are far worse films out there. Ben Affleck has been in plenty of films. I don't know if you've seen Geely. I don't know. I don't know if you've seen the things that Jared Leto's been in, but I mean,
Joker.
If you go look at any of those films, they're bad films. And I would put anything that either of those two actors have done far below the Twilight series compared to what people like to shit on it for. Like you can get mad at Kirsten Stewart it's Kirsten Stewart. You can get mad at her all you want to, but Jumper. I watched Jumper 2 weeks ago. Jumper has Kirsten Stewart in the end of the film as like a walk-on extra before Twilight anything. Like it was like, haha, I now know where you came from. So, speaking of bad films, Jumper also probably below Twilight, truthfully, if we're going to be honest about it. It started with Hayden Christensen. They tried to add Samuel Jackson. It didn't work. That is a 5 out of 5 space herpes. Please see a doctor. Consult your physicians as soon as possible.
It had a good concept, but just a bad movie.
Oh, absolutely. The concept of the film is fantastic. The script looked good. I just think that the budget was not there to make the movie. The special effects needed to be further along, and it was definitely story versus success for acting, which had I can't think of the name of the actor, but he was the guy who played the main character from Turn, the Washington spy series. Was in Jumper as one of the anti-heroes.
Well, guys, that is our episode. We want to thank Charles for coming on and hanging out with us. Don't forget, we will be doing some paint and hang, so just check on the server if people are in there. Go in there and hang out, and hang out with us and do some painting, because we're all in crunch time for Warfare Weekend. But, of course, Charles, we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Always, people, make sure you're looking after each other. If you haven't heard from a friend in a little bit, just kind of send a, hey, how's it going type thing. But we've got to make sure we're taking care of each other. As always, if you see something, say something. If you hear something, say something. If you can do something, do something. If you can't, find somebody that will, because we've got to make sure we're taking care of each other. For More Than Dice, I'm Gonzo.
I'm Izzy.
And I'm a guy strapped to a chair. See you guys next time.
Good night.
Thanks for listening to More Than Dice, making the world a better, nerdier place, one dumb joke at a time. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. For more nerdy action or to connect with your hosts, check them out on Facebook.com/morethandice and Twitch.tv/more_than_dice. Until next time, stay nerdy, stay proud, and we'll see you soon on the More Than Dice podcast.